Hiya friends, Prepared Suburbanite here. With this week's thoughts from the old bearded one, and here's the theme for this video. What does 2022 hold for us, and why do we need to be prepared? So stick around. I want to share a whole bunch of thoughts and my thoughts on January 6th. So what do I see coming in 2022 that we need to be prepared for? Well, continuing inflation. In fact, probably a worsening of inflation. I think the last official numbers that I saw from the U.S. government were somewhere between 6.2 or 6.8% year over year increases in the composite index of inflation. And I'm not quite so sure that that's as accurate as it needs to be. Yesterday, I was shopping online for my wife's favorite egg noodles. We buy them in bulk, and we can generally get them from Amazon. They're wonderful egg noodles. We get a big 4-pound bag of it, and it lasts us about a year or so. So she tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, next time you do an order, see if you can pick up some egg noodles." And so I found the egg noodles, put them on my wish list, and noticed that the price was around $32.40 for a 4-pound bag. So I went back and looked at the last time that I ordered them, and it was about 14 months ago. It was right towards the end of 2020, and I looked up that invoice, and at the time they were $18.90 for that same 4-pound bag. Now, I'm not going to do the math, but that's more than 6%. So it's those kinds of things, coupled with gas, availability of things, that I think we're going to continue to be exposed to extreme conditions of inflation, worsening, getting worse every month, month after month after month. So I'm not holding out a whole lot of hope that that's going to be under control soon, or in transitory in any shape or fashion. The second concern that I've got for 2022, and it's already seemed to be panning out with today, just a few days into the new year, looking at what's going on with the stock market. Best case scenario that I see happening in 2022, best case scenario, in my view, is there's going to be a correction. And I believe that a correction is designed or is defined as a 10% drop for a certain period of time compared to a similar period in time. So a 10% correction, we can sort of live with that. From we've lived through them in the past, 2001 and 2008. We've been there. The stock market does come back from time to time, but it takes it a couple of years to really flesh it all out to come back. Worst case scenario is that we're going to have a true crash. What's going to precipitate that crash, I don't know. Fed monetary policy had a big impact this week on the stock market because they're thinking about raising interest rates, and the cost of money is going to go up. Well, when the cost of money goes up, it's supposedly good for reversing or stymieing the growth of inflation. But when the stock market says, hey, we can't get cheap money anymore, they go crazy, and the investors and the traders, the retail investors, I think, are the most dangerous to watch right now. But they've had a profound impact on what's going on in the past few days in the stock market. But I think there's going to be a crash, and it's going to be somewhere between the correction and a full-blown market crash, where we're talking a 20% decline in valuation of stocks. What's going to precipitate it? I don't know. Whether North Korea is going to go crazy over there and launch a missile and start a war, or whether Iran is going to be successful in developing their nuclear capabilities, or whether China is going to invade Taiwan and pull us into a conflict there, whether Russia is going to invade Crimea, not Crimea, they've already done that, whether Russia is going to invade the Ukraine, which I think is a big possibility looming very soon. I've saw the reports a couple of months ago that was figuring, yeah, sometime after the first of the year, Putin's going to flex his muscles and he's going to make his move. So we'll see. That's going to have an impact, a big impact on the stock market, and we've got to be prepared for it as the prepping community. The other thing that I'm very concerned about, and we're going to see it play out, particularly today, if you watch the news broadcast today, you're going to relearn how horrible, as bad as Pearl Harbor, as bad as anything you could possibly imagine, what happened on January 6th last year. But what I'm really concerned about are the empowered Democrats. They control the House, they control the Senate, and they're in the White House right now. And they have got quite a bit of leverage, not as much as they would like. Their assault on our Constitution is almost unbelievable. They want to attack the Second Amendment. In fact, they want to really do away with the Second Amendment. And there's already been some new versions of the Second Amendment starting to float around in certain law circles and academia right now. The Voting Rights Act, where they want to federalize what the Constitution calls the state's responsibility to run the elections. And they want to federalize that, and they're pushing very hard for that. Schumer wants to do away with the filibuster to get the Voting Rights Act, the John Lewis bill, enacted into law so that they can federalize elections. And they say it's the only way to save our democracy. Well, you can't save this democracy, which is not a democracy, it's a federal republic, but you can't save it by usurping and denying and modifying the U.S. Constitution. I'm sure that the Supreme Court would find it totally unconstitutional if this thing ever did get passed. I'm sure it would be challenged right away, and the Supreme Court, I would bet dollars to donuts that they would say, oh, that's not constitutional. So that brings me to the next point, where I think the empowered Democrats are really going to want to act, and they want to pack the Supreme Court. That's still on their agenda. I don't know what the number is going to be that they're actually going to push for, but they've only got about 10 months, 11 months now to get it done. But I suspect that there will be a push to add seats to the Supreme Court and let the current Democrat administration start picking very liberal, leftist thinking jurists to put on the Supreme Court. Whether they move it to 11 or 13 or 15 or 17, that's almost immaterial. But because the Supreme Court right now does have a little bit of a right lean to it, I'm not quite so sure that they're all as right-leaning as everybody thinks they are. But they are constitutionalists for the most part, except the lefties. And I don't think they would allow the packing of the Supreme Court to actually happen either. Now, the Constitution doesn't have any say over how many justices can serve in the Supreme Court. That's up to Congress. So we'll have to see how that all turns out. They want to make D.C. a state, and possibly even Puerto Rico. But D.C., there's some movement afoot right now to make D.C. a state. And what that'll do, because D.C. has been solidly Democrat leftist for a long time, probably forever, that would give 2 more seats, Democrat seats, in the Senate, and at least 1, maybe 2. I don't know what the final population would be after they get done gerrymandering what D.C. looks like today, but that could very well add a couple of Democrat seats to the House. But 2 in the Senate for sure, because it would be a state. Now, the Constitution does say that the District of Columbia cannot be a state. It has to be a separate entity and doesn't belong to any individual state and all that. But they've figured out clever little ways around that. So the area from the White House to the Capitol building and the Supreme Court and that whole core area of the seat of our government, that would be the District of Columbia. Areas in the southeast, the northeast, they would go someplace else. I don't know if they'd be given back to Virginia or given back to Maryland, but there would be some shakeup there if they're successful in getting that done. The continuing mandates for the vaccines, the continuing mandates for lockdowns and close downs and school funding and all that kind of stuff, I suspect that that's going to continue. This new variant obviously is very contagious. It seems like it's a breakthrough in pretty much every case. And because we're dealing with that right now, and there are rumors that I've heard that there are other variants that could be more powerful, more contagious, more lethal, that are in the pipeline right now that are just being discovered in places like Spain. I suspect that we'll be looking at continued pandemic mandates for the entire year of 2022. The continued immigration crisis, I don't see any activity that's underway right now to stem the tide of immigrants that are coming in illegally, the crime, the fentanyl, the crazy policies that are going on right now that continue to affect this crisis at our southern border. That will continue in 2022. Escalating censorship is another issue, and that censorship is directed primarily at conservative viewpoints. So if you disagree with vaccine mandates and mask mandates, you're pretty much taken off social media, and that's a form of censorship. Yeah, I know, but misinformation, yeah, we can go back and talk about what kind of misinformation is really going on out there. like the president recently saying that the current issues with this Omicron strain is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not the way I see it. And I don't think that the facts or the science is going to back up that kind of a statement. So is that misinformation? I don't hear the fact checkers going crazy over what he said. I didn't see that this current president was banned from Twitter or any place else. So we'll see what happens. But I suspect that in 2022, this will continue and it may escalate even further. Escalating crime. The Soros-backed district attorneys in the cities and counties in California, and the new one in the city of New York and Philadelphia, places like that, where they've basically said, unless you murder somebody, we're not even going to bother to prosecute you. But, man, if you were anywhere near the Capitol steps on January 6th last year, oh boy, the whole army of the Department of Justice is going to make sure that you pay your dues, and you'll be to the fullest extent of the law. That's the way it's going to be. So, yeah, I think crime is going to be a continuing issue for all of us. Continued support for the leftist position on racism. You see, that's the only way I can put it. In order for the left to demonize the white ruling class, is that they have to make us look like we're racist. So they invent things like critical race theory, the 1619 Project, to have folks take a look first at the color of one's skin and then make a determination on whether you agree with the leftist narrative, and if you don't, sorry, you're a racist. And you'll be treated as a racist, as a second-class citizen. You'll be humiliated. You'll be driven out of restaurants. You'll be castigated any which way they can figure out how to do it. So I believe that the left will continue to push its racism narrative until we reach a breaking point. And what that's going to be, I'm afraid to guess. The education system and the leftist continuing progress in the indoctrination of our youth in the schools with the things that they're teaching, the backlash from the parents at school board meetings, trying to silence them. It's going to continue, and it's probably going to get even worse. So then the question becomes, what are we ready to do to be prepared? So hold on. So what do we need to do in the prepper community to really be prepared? And all I can really do is share what I've been doing myself to make sure that me and my family, my kids, my grandkids, stay ahead of the chaos. I've taken a look at our food stores. I've reassessed our needs, and I've pretty much are on the path right now, about 75-80% of the way there, of doubling what we had before. And what we had before was probably a good solid year's worth of food for my immediate family. And I needed to expand that because I've got nearly fully grown grandchildren right now, and two families that, my daughter's families, that I think may need some assistance. So I've taken it upon myself to double what we have put aside for our food stores, for our water, water availability and water alternatives, for alternate means of heat and cooking. So those are the kinds of things that I've done, and I would certainly urge you all to take a real hard look at what you've got, find out where your weak spots are, take a look at what you normally consume, put a plan together, look at your budget, make some sacrifices if necessary, and you may need to shore up your food preps. Make sure you've got enough rice and beans and canned goods and flour and sugar and the staples that you need to make it through a good long time. And it will be a good long time before anything could possibly come back to normal. Second thing that you can do, if you've got the budget to do it, and thankfully I've got a little bit extra at the end of the budget month to continue the investments, and what I'm investing in right now is silver. I started doing that in November, little bit at a time, couple of $100 here, couple of $100 in December, couple of $100 in January, and planning to do the same. And what I'm investing in is silver. I don't know enough about the cryptos yet to take any gambles with that, but I find it inordinately speculative. So I'm not going to throw a whole lot into that. I may take a look in the future and see if that's the right thing to do. But what I'm buying right now is pre-65 silver coins. Dimes, quarters, half dollars, whatever I can get my hands on. Just yesterday, ordered a bunch of dimes. Month before that, it was a mixed bag. I got quarters and dimes, and I think a couple 50-cent pieces. And before that, it was silver dollars. So that's where I'm throwing a few extra dollars every month just to make sure that I'm going to have a little bit of backup if our fiat currency crashes, which could be one of the secondary things related to a stock market crash. Lack of confidence in the dollar, worldwide economies taking a tumble. I think we're going to need an alternate form of barter, and silver has been around for thousands of years as a form of barter. So to recap just a little bit, I'm not holding out a lot of hope for a big turnaround, a return to normal in 2022. I just don't see it happening with the current political climate, the division, the hatred that's going on between the left and anybody that disagrees with them, whether they're on the right or not. Just ask Joe Manchin. So I'm not holding out a lot of hope. There's a lot of stuff that I see that's just nonsense. So to be prepared is the right thing to do. And I want to close with just a couple of thoughts about what happened January 6th last year. And I made some notes just so I could try to remember all the stuff that I was thinking. But it really just boils down to this. The left and this committee that's investigating it in the House uses the word insurrection. And my thought is, if Trump truly wanted to start an insurrection, he wouldn't have picked a guy with a horned helmet and a vest with all kinds of weird face paint. That's not how you do an insurrection or a coup. If Trump had really planned this thing out, it would have been well-funded, well-organized, well-coordinated, and probably successful. But it was totally unnecessary It was a bad stain on the American ideals of civility, and it was totally lawless on both sides, from best I can tell. Totally unnecessary, but it was not an insurrection. This is the Prepared Suburbanite, reminding you to be prepared always, and I'll see you all on the next video.